Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another edition of Letters to God. Get your pen and paper out. Pull out your notepad, because we're going to take some notes today. See if anybody's listening. Even if they're not, we're going to keep sending those letters, hoping to get an answer in one way or another with the man who has all the answers, Dr. Trin. Welcome, sir.
Hey, good morning. I obviously don't have all the answers, and if I did, they're typically the wrong answers.
So we were talking before about everybody's got a little, a congestion on your end or a frog in your throat, whatever you want to do it. So we were going through on another show, Health Talks with Dr. Trin. He had a very cutting-edge Harvard professor on with this interesting idea of how to do pulmonary hygiene, kind of, yeah. How to basically add a certain amount of salt and saline and other solutions into your nose and into your system, so as all of these germs from COVID on down, they come into your nasal passage, they come into your nose, mouth, ears, mostly your nose, how the system can fight this and flush it back out. One of it is to be more hydrated, to have more ability to kick and expel all this stuff before it gets embedded into your lungs and into your heart and all this terrible stuff happens. So he was just hold it up. You've got this little thing. And while you're all laughing and saying this is some scam, this guy was on CNN right after he was on Dr. Trin's Health Talk shows. And he's presenting this to Sanjay Gupta is doing a big event, and they're having all these top-level speakers, and they're talking about different sorts of simple health remedies, health tricks to help build up your immune system from something this simple to more complex things here. So he's presenting this paper. It's a pretty serious study, what seems like a pretty simple idea, just because you hold it up and you breathe into it, right? You do this. So
yeah, you're like snorting,
Snorting, all right. It's like
except it's not the other snorting. There's nothing white in it. You're just
it's moisture.
I'm not really doing it right. Sorry. This is the wrong show for that. We're gonna do spiritual hygiene today.
That's what I was getting at. We are all trusting. We're all looking for some regimen. We're all looking for some health, just like we're trying to find our health routine. I drink 16 ounces a glass of water. I hydrate my nose. I flush my nasal cavities. I brush my teeth. We have these routines that we fall into in the hope that it will keep us healthy. Are there routines that you guys have, or that we should emulate, or that anybody knows about, to put us in spiritual health, other than I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I say my 2 prayers before I go to bed. I cross myself. I'm Catholic. I cross myself every other moment. When something happens, I see an ambulance go by, I cross myself. Is there something beyond these rituals, which sometimes almost look like, what do they say when people who have what am I trying to think of? The mental disorder where you have to rub your hands 4 times and touch it and do everything. OCD, yes. Obsessive compulsive disorder, right. Sometimes I feel like crossing myself is OCD. Every time I see something, I feel immediately I got to do this. And if I don't do it right, God's going to say, no, I didn't do it right. I'm not going to cover you on that one. If I don't say my prayers perfect, if I don't pray for mommy and daddy and Fluffy and everybody in the right order with the right intensity, nobody's listening. Are there, beyond these simple rituals, are there health routines for our spiritual health? Talk about that. And we have with us again Elizabeth Ornelas, who knows all about this.
Oh yeah.
What do you think, Elizabeth? Any health routines for the soul?
Absolutely. Just the same way that you do all your physical routines to take care of your body, you have to take care of your soul. And it's not about rituals. It's about just relationship with God. That's really what it's about, right? And we have that relationship with God. You know, just like you have a relationship with anyone, Paul, you spend time with that person, right? To build that relationship.
But in a normal relationship, I get feedback. Right. My wife makes me smile. My kids give me a hug. My grandson the other day, he's 1.5, and before he left, he ran back. You know, we watch him on certain days, and as his mom came to pick him up, he ran back and gave me a hug. Oh my God, I started crying. You know, it's like, what was it that I did that suddenly was worth a hug? So we have direct physical responses. We can see their face. We can hear their voice. We feel their touch. I struggle to feel the touch of God. I'm sorry. I don't. I want to feel the touch. I know people say it's all around you. Then you're not tuning in. The noise is blocking the messages or the feelings or something there. Did you see the hummingbird fly by? Did you see the signs that are all around us that you're too busy to see? How do you have a relationship with somebody, something, some entity that I mostly can't see, touch, or hear?
I'm going to pick that one up. That's an easy question.
That's an easy one. Okay, all right.
That's easy?
That's so easy.
Oh my gosh.
So
How's that
easy. It's easy because of what scriptures say that the Lord inhabits the souls of his people. So in all of our relationships, you know, he sends letters back and forth all of the time, right? We ask, right?
You're saying through people, through the people around you.
Through people, through conversations, through circumstances, right? Through different kinds of situations all the time, right? And he's in the fellowship that we have, right? He's in the fellowship that we have. He's in that when your grandson runs back to, you know, to greet you, right? Or to say, don't leave. Yeah, to hug you. That's just, so that's beautiful.
There's I'm in relationship with God. I'm in relationship with another divine person through them.
Because Christians believe that God is love. So he's in that relationship between you and your grandson, right?
Okay.
That sounds sounds like, I don't know, like, you know, somewhere in the fluffy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm more scientific. Right.
Yes, right.
But here it is. Here's another way to look at it. I don't see electricity, but I know electricity works.
There you go. That's a good one.
Right. Or maybe I don't see the wind, but I can see the leaves blowing. I can see
there are physical forces that you can touch, taste, feel that you don't necessarily understand. I don't understand really how radio waves float through the air, and yet I'm on the radio. I don't understand how somehow the internet transmits little packets of data, ones and twos, and then returns it back into video and audio on another end, and how those packets get moved from my computer to somebody else's computer, how it goes through the Ethernet. We have names for all this stuff, but I defy most people to explain to me how the Ethernet really works. What do you think?
What is that?
Well, because
I don't even know.
The Ethernet and this strange way of communicating, we know, or you can get even deeper into the science. The one that always blows my mind, not to get too deep down a rabbit hole here, is as you get into quantum mechanics, the world of subatomic particles, where nothing makes sense. A particle can be in two places at one time. You only determine its position when you look at it. You know, so it's here, and when I finally look at it, then it picks a spot and it's there. And you go, that doesn't make sense. None of this, go look up quantum mechanics of how all these quarks and subatomic particles work. None of it makes sense, logical sense. And yet they say that appears to be what's going on. So there are things around us that we know are there, we can't see and we can't explain, but we accept. Why do so many of us struggle with the same thing with God?
Dr. Elizabeth Ornelas, were you able to see God while under the COVID tents?
Yes.
In this last year and a half. Tell us all about it.
So that's why I was asked to be on this show, really, is to talk about just the tenting time and to talk about just my personal transformation in the tents.
Right.
So on our last show, we talked about this. I'm a family practice nurse practitioner, and I worked in an urgent care where I was in in a clinic where we had patients that were on the inside, that were our regular urgent care patients, patients where we set up tents on the outside to treat those patients that had COVID or potential COVID, just to keep, contagion down within the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also did virtual visits where we saw patients that were in their homes on a screen. And so during this time, we talked about this last time, that it's hard, right? It's really hard as a clinician. You put on your PPE, your mask, your suit, and all that stuff, and go out there just patient after patient to take care of somebody who's scared and somebody who's sick. And every single day, I would just pray on the way to work that I would just pray that God would just take care of his people, and that I wouldn't miss anything, and that I would just be of service to him.
And we talked about, just a reminder, I'm going to interrupt for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
You told this powerful story. Go back and listen to the earlier episode of how, again, you're physically you're not only overwhelmed, you're trying to see a lot of people in a short period of time, because these hospital systems are just being overwhelmed by the sheer number of cases. That's been one of the problems with this whole thing. So you're tired, you're fatigued, you got a million people waiting in line. You got to get through this group of people, and next, and you're physically separated from them. You can't really touch them, but through gloves.
Right.
You can't talk to them except through a mask. All of this is creating physical barriers to them. You're afraid, and they're afraid, and everybody's afraid, and nobody knows what to do. And so we're trying to find our way through this bizarre world that we've set up in these tents. And you found somebody that had some symptom, and normally you might have missed it, particularly because you're tired and you're rushed and you're separate and everything else. And you might have let it slide, and probably somebody did let it slide earlier. And you said, wait a minute, stop the whole assembly line. What is this? Look further. And it turned out to be life-threatening. And you saved somebody's life. So you didn't miss what was there to be seen, but which would have been totally understandable. Probably everybody in the room would have missed it. Talk about that. Tell us that story again, and then how does that reinforce what you're saying? Please, God, don't let me miss what's right here.
How does Paul remember all these stories? I don't even remember the episode.
I remember stories. I'm a storyteller, and stories stick in your brain. I don't remember other parts of it, but a story to me gets embedded into my brain, and I share that with people. That's the power of stories. That's why we use stories so much. Yeah.
Right.
Tell me that story again, and then.
Okay. And I have a news story for you today, Paul.
Oh, good. Okay. Even better.
What I was talking about, for those of you that didn't hear last time, is I was just talking about that. Paul's right, that there was just a separation between how you feel just as a clinician. Normally, we go in, we hear we'll call it the history of present illness, what the patient tells us is going on. We do our exam, we see what's going on with the patient. And then we decide, what the diagnosis is, what we want to do, and what treatment we want to give them. But that particular day that I described last time was the windiest day in California in the entire year, where all of our supplies were blowing away, and we were wearing PPE and it was just blowing off of us. And I saw, a 20-year-old in the tents, and he had on a hat, and he was all bundled up in a jacket, and he had a hoodie on, and he had a mask and everything. And all I could see was his eyes. And I was, if you remember the story now, Dr. Trin, all I could see was his eyes. And I had been praying, to the Lord that day, and saying, just, what kind of like, what good am I doing? I felt really frustrated that I didn't have all of my ability to take the best care of patients that I normally could. I was using a stethoscope that was different. It was outside in the wind. It's near an airport, so there were planes going overhead. The sun's in my eyes, my glasses, and my shield, they're all foggy.
Nothing's working. Why am I here? Why am I even doing this?
Yeah, or they're rained on, and I literally, so you can't see well, you can't hear well, you can't speak well because you're wearing a mask, they're wearing a mask. So communication is like when you're a little kid and one kid has that tin can and another kid has a tin can, and there's some kind of like tube in the middle, and one person says something and
a tenuous string that connects the two of you together, and somehow a little sound vibrates up that string. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And somehow you go, wait, how did this communication go to this communication? And so I was just very aware of that, trying to be really careful. But the point of the story last time is that all I could see was this, gentleman's eyes. And I noticed that he was jaundiced and that his eyes were yellow. So I sent him to the emergency department. That's where Dr. Trin works, and sent him to the emergency department for workup for this. And he had COVID that had attacked his liver, and he had inflammation in his liver, and he was very sick and got admitted to the hospital, but he got better. And the ER doctor said, who saw this?
Yeah.
Like in those crazy conditions in the tent, all I could see were his eyes. And what I was explaining last time, Paul, is that God is on a need to know basis. Like you don't see the whole picture, you don't see the whole story, but all I saw was this gentleman's eyes. That's all I saw was the whites of his eyes, and they weren't white. And in that case, that's all I needed to see. So sometimes as human beings, we want to know so much, we want to see so much, we want to understand so much, but that's not how God is. We just have this joke all the time. He just shows you what you need to know. And the famous joke is like, he's an 11th hour. My sister calls him the 11th hour and 59-minute God, right?
It comes in at the last
and he
second.
comes through. Yeah.
All right. So again, maybe in a weird way, the fact that you were cut off of all these things, the normal sensory cues that you're playing off of, your talking, their smile, their behavior, whatever, all these other cues that you're picking up on were gone. They're bundled, they're blocked. So you only had one cue. It's almost like God was, maybe I'm being overly generous here, but the idea is that God's saying, I'm going to block everything else just so you can focus, because there's only one thing you can see behind the mask and the baseball cap and the bundle is the eyes. It's the only cue left. And that's probably why you picked up on it. Whereas if there'd been 1,000 cues, it's sunny and you're looking at the sun and the birds are tweeting and you're listening to them and this guy's talking and laughing, you might have overlooked this one cue because there were too many other cues.
Yes. That's so true, right? Yeah.
Is that how God works? Like he gives us these specific circumstances in life to make that difference for somebody else?
Make it clear. To clarify to cut through. I'll give you another story. We just did another show here on the station, and it's about a young family that's traveling the world. They've decided in the midst of all this craziness, they're staying at home anyway. They're working from home anyway. They've got a remote business they run, and they've got a couple of small kids that are just doing distance learning. Why are we just sitting in this house? Let's go out and see the world during this period of time.
Yeah.
And so they've dropped out and they're on the road. And it might be for 6 months, it might be for a year, I don't know, or it might be for a month. But why are we just all holed up here? Why don't let's go out and take advantage of this time. So one of the questions they said before they started this, they thought, we don't have enough money. How am I going to go out and see the world? I can't leave. And then they thought, and it's not safe out in the world. It's safe at home. So the husband ran a store, a retail store for Verizon, and he said they had just said their last child had been born. He had taken some time off to bond with the child, and now he says, I got to go back to work. I got to make some more money. Maybe someday we'll do this, honey, but not now. And it's certainly not safe out there now. It's much safer at home. That first day he went to work, somebody walked in with a gun, put it to his head, and robbed his store. And he came home and said, there is no safe place. Let's go. And they really felt it was like God speaking to them, saying, you think this is safe? Let me show you how safe this is, buddy.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. What about, Liz, what about the butterflies? What about your butterfly stories?
That kind of ties in well with what Paul said, Dr. Trin. Yeah. So that's what you wanted me to talk about last time, is that so during the COVID time, Paul, remember that I described last time that we had a crazy high busy level.
Yes.
And then with the stay-at-home orders, that our numbers dropped. So this didn't just happen in my clinic, but it happened just nationwide in so many different places.
Thank you for working so hard. Now you get laid off.
Yes.
That's what happened. And so we had these crazy high numbers. And then when the numbers dropped, the patients were staying at home, which was great. I mean, we were doing what we wanted to do. We wanted to prevent COVID. So that's what we did. But when we prevented COVID, we prevented other infections when people weren't going to work. They weren't, having car accidents or workers' comp cases or injuries. They weren't going out to playing sports, so they weren't spraining their ankle. And so because of that, the census dropped. So our volume dropped, and we had a group of employees that was furloughed. And our original furlough was a couple weeks, and it turned 2 weeks turned into 10 weeks.
Wow.
So
we've done such a good job keeping everybody at home that now we don't need your services anymore because there's not enough demand for what you're doing here.
Right. And so that was what Dr. Trin and I were talking about, is that you take care of patients. You are an essential worker, and the media was on every day talking about essential workers. And, my friends were saying, this is awesome. Like, all I can do is sit here, right? Like what you were saying, all I can do is to sit here in my house, right? But you get to go out and help people. And I was thinking, like, this is my privilege to go out and to take care of people. This is what I do, right? This is what I'm trained to do. This is how I want to serve God in my community, is I want to go out and take care of, sick people. And I really found it to be such a privilege. And so that day that happened, where we were given our furlough, I was in such a state of utter shock. This was not good for me because, like I said, I love what I do. And I love that kind of a setting. Most people don't want to walk into like a hospital or clinic. They smell alcohol and they freak out and say, I don't want to be here. There's sick people and there's blood and that kind of stuff. And I don't want to be here, but I don't feel that way. I feel like it's a second home to me. Like, I want to go there and, be of service.
So does this fall under the guise of no good deed goes unpunished? You did a good
I
deed,
think so.
And all of a sudden, wait a minute, God, I'm here to help. It's a privilege. I'm ready to help. I gave it all. We gave extra hours, extra thing. And I guess we did extra good because nobody's sick now, and therefore don't need me for a while.
Right. So, well, this is what happened. The day before the furlough, it was I had a birthday party. The nurses gave me this beautiful birthday party at work, and one of the nurses put a tiara on me, this like fake diamond little girl tiara, and it was really cute because we took this picture of me in my PPE and tiara. And I just literally felt like a princess. I mean, there were flowers and plants and gifts on my desk, and I felt so special and so needed, right? I just felt so needed. And then the next day when the furlough happened, I said, wait a minute, like my mind could not I couldn't wrap my head around the polar opposite state of being like extremely productive and busy in a tent during a pandemic, like living in PPE, taking care of like a massive amount of patients that just kept coming through the doors. We just were very efficient, and I was really pleased and happy. And then,
doing
like,
miraculous
the next day,
things. I saw the jaundice in this man's eye. Wow, there's the reinforcement I'm needed. I'm doing good.
That's right. So I went from being essential to what I felt was like, what, like today I'm unessential.
Right.
How did this happen? And I was at home like everybody else. And so there I was, right? Like I couldn't accommodate the difference. And so originally when this happened to me, like I just went into what my friend calls a one-person pity party.
Yeah.
Just went into my own pity party. Like, what? How can this happen? Did I not, work hard enough? Did I not do a good enough job? Did I not take care of enough people? Did I not, was I not productive enough? And it took me a while to kind of accommodate these kind of thoughts, because how society is, Paul, is that, you work for a company. And you have to be what? You have to be productive.
Of course.
And what constitutes productivity? Like volume, right? Volume, you have to do your job well. You have to be liked. There's customer service scores and all those kinds of like realistic things, right? And so we're branded to be highly productive people in all of our companies, right?
And I think we want to be as humans. Most of us don't really want to. I guess there's some, but most of us really don't want to just sit home and do nothing. We value contributing. It makes us feel important. It makes us feel needed. Right.
Yeah. Well, it makes you feel needed. That's the whole thing, right? And so it made us feel needed. And so when you go to such a busy, productive state, you know, from being essential to, I guess what I was feeling was unessential. Like my mind couldn't accommodate the difference. And I was totally, you know, out of balance. And so, you know, what you do, you know, as a Christian is, of course, like you turn to God. And I started
I turn to
reading
God,
about,
all right. There's a fist up in the air, and I'm saying, okay, buddy, you know, here's my angry. And wait a minute, I got a few things to say to you, buddy. Here, you know,
Upset at God. Yeah.
what's going on here?
oh yeah, I wrote my letters. I was upset that day. I wrote my letters like, what are you doing? Is this not good enough? You know, I can't say that I wasn't upset, because I was upset.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And then one of my friends, you know, who's a physician, said to me, like, why are you taking this personally? This isn't about you. This is affecting so many people all over the world. So don't take this personally. This is just happening. Like, what are you going to do with this time? You know, and I just made this decision to, you know, pop out of my pity party, which wasn't easy, because I was comfortable there.
Pity parties are comfortable, aren't they, Dr. Trin?
I know.
I love this. It's not my fault. The whole world is against me. Everybody's out to get me. This isn't fair. This isn't right. Oh, I can sit and I can amplify that one all over the day. And everybody comes in and says, hey, let me tell you what happened to me. This isn't fair. This isn't right. And they're like, yeah. I heard it. No, but it's really bad. I'm telling you, I got it really bad this time here. Yeah, it's easy to do that. All right, so you popped out of the pity party, you decided to go.
Well, yeah, but it took some time. I mean, just the day before, I was wearing my tiara and I was the princess, you know. Yeah. So it took some time, you know. It was during major lockdown. So, you know, I had friends and family bring me, you know, my birthday cake in the backyard and all of that stuff. And so, yes, it was my own birthday, and I was feeling
It's your own birthday when you got put on furlough?
Yeah, it was. There was a day between. Yeah.
Really? Happy birthday! Yeah. Ouch.
No, when I got really? Yeah, it was not a good birthday present for me. But like during this time, I was reading a lot. I just thought I vowed to myself, I'm not going back the same. Like I'm not the same inside. I'm never going back the same. So I just took very good care of myself, started exercising a ton, like twice a day, and reading the scriptures. You asked about like what we do as a routine. You know, I was reading the scriptures. I was in a lot of Zoom groups, in a couple different prayer groups. And, you know, one thing that gets you out of a pity party, and I think any nurse like knows this, is if you want to instantly get out of a pity party, just go take care of somebody else.
Yes. Make it not about you, make it about somebody else.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Dr. Trin and I talk about this kind of stuff all the time in our prayer group. Like, you want to just get out of your own self, stop thinking about your own stuff, just go help somebody else.
Can I tell you something strange? What people ask me all the time, because I'm still a cradle to grave Catholic, despite all the problems in my church, and I get it. We can talk endlessly about priest abuse and craziness and problems in the church. I get all of that. But for me, it's a place where I put myself. Not always easy, not always fun, not always that I want to be there. But I force myself, I get myself up to go someplace to think about somebody other than me for a moment. For a moment, I'm part of a greater community. For a moment, I'm hearing to somebody. Hopefully there is an entity called God trying to communicate with me here. But whatever it is, it puts me out of otherwise it's all about me. It's my job, it's my career, it's my time, it's my agenda, it's my needs, it's my wants, it's my desires. And for a moment, I put myself, church is a place I go to think about others, to listen to others, to participate with others, where I'm not the center of the story today here at that moment.
Okay, so you set me up now. And so now I'm going to challenge you with something, Paul.
All right.
So here's the thing. Most of the time, or probably all of the time, right? I mentioned earlier that God speaks to us through other people and our interactions with other people. Okay, he also speaks to us in the silence of your own mind, in the silence of your own heart. Yes. So you are a fellow who speaks for a living. You make a living, right? You pay your bills because you talk.
Right.
So
which is wonderful, because I do it anyway. Even if nobody paid me, I talk. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, I hear you. My sister used to say, Lizzie, you're your own radio. And I would just I talk to myself all the time. I still do. right? And all the
God
time
love
growing
you.
up, I would just talk to my own self, entertain my own self. I had a lot of siblings, but I could just entertain my own self.
Me too.
Hey,
For,
have you
now
ever
for
thought
you,
about, have you ever thought about paying someone not to talk?
well, actually, I did do this. So Paul, you know what you need? You need a silent retreat. You need to be silent because you need to hear God
Probably.
in your silence, because if you're such a busy bee talking all the time, you can't, when your wife's talking to you and you're talking, you cannot hear her and you cannot listen to her. So that's what he needs to pay somebody to
you
be
must have been
silent on a
talking to
retreat.
her, because that's her common complaint. You're not listening to me. You're talking, you're preaching, you're telling a funny story
Oh,
here.
we should do I want to see Paul do a silent retreat and see if he's successful. See if he's successful or not.
So in
Yeah.
second grade, the story my mother loved to tell everybody, because everybody knows Paul likes to talk. She said in second grade, the nuns came when she went to school to see how little Paul is doing. He's doing really good in school, but he talks all the time. And the nun said, "Does he talk in his sleep? Because he talks all the time." That's what I do.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, Liz, continue. I want to hear about butterflies here.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Trin. So during that time I was reading, and I was just reading about transformation and metamorphosis and things like that.
Wow.
And came across the butterfly principle and started reading about how butterflies, how caterpillars, metamorphosize into butterflies. And then I just became fascinated with this principle. And basically there's some stages of this, but this creepy crawly, caterpillar,
Right.
is crawling on the ground, crawling in the weeds, goes through these stages, Paul, where he first eats so many leaves. He eats leaves and stuffs himself eating leaves until he cannot eat leaves anymore.
Okay.
And that's just his whole job in life, right? Well, first he hatches from an egg, then he just pops out and eats leaves. So he becomes oversaturated. Like he just consumes.
Right.
And then the next stage is what Dr. Trin, he always calls it the cocoon stage. That's the chrysalis stage. And the chrysalis stage is where the caterpillar literally digests itself. So all these hormones and enzymes are acting up, and the caterpillar literally digests itself.
It eats itself.
And he eats himself, and he becomes like caterpillar. Caterpillar soup inside this cocoon, right? So he's literally dangling from a branch. He's digesting himself. And from the perspective of the caterpillar, this is catastrophic, right? The little creature is dangling from a branch.
I'm suddenly wrapped in a womb again. I fought to get out of this egg. I crawled around and ate everything I could, and then somehow I crawled back into it, and I build a cocoon around me to isolate me.
He does. He spins 4 or 5 times, I think. Yeah.
Really?
He spins, and he digests himself. And then there's all of these, like I said, there's enzymes and hormones, and he's digesting himself. And then there's these cells, they're called imaginal cells.
Imaginal, like they're in your imagination?
They're imagining the cells.
they're really called imaginal cells, and they're going to be the future butterfly. So then all of these hormones trigger these cells to grow, a butterfly parts, an eye, a wing, an antenna. And so the caterpillar goes through this metamorphosis in his, little cocoon there. And when he's ready, though, then he grows into a butterfly. But here's the thing. This stage is the butterfly stage. This before this caterpillar turns into a butterfly and pops out, he's in his cocoon, and I want to say it's for a couple of weeks, but during that time, this is how I felt. Like when I was in the tents, I just thought, so many people, not just me.
You're consuming. You're the caterpillar chewing up everything that comes your way.
Well, but usually in our, in my job and all that stuff, there's a high consumption. So there's a consumption of ideas, thoughts, media, sometimes it's food, right?
Activity.
Or it's boredom.
I got to keep going. I got things to do. I got you're in a frantic pace. Right.
Right, like being in a hyper productive state, right? And so like I became so out of balance, and it wasn't until I stopped and rested in my chrysalis stage, right, which is a necessary step, right? I just kept going and going because we had to. The demands of the epidemic were so high. Like there wasn't a break, honestly. There wasn't a break for so many, and not just us, but grocery store workers and Amazon delivers, everybody. And so that during that time that you go, when you stop, it's so polar opposite of go.
What was the Christus stage for you?
What did you do in the cocoon?
Well,
Yeah.
I did everything that I could never do because I was so busy, right? So
Like
I mean,
what? Like what?
Oh, like I
Was
well,
was the Christus stage when you were like at home?
yeah.
Is that when the Christus stage was?
For me, it was when, well, there were different times. It's like you go in and out of it. But at work, I mean, I was kind of like cocooning in my own PPE in the tents. Like that was a cocoon time for me too. Like I was growing and changing and transforming, like wrapped in my PPE all the time, but nobody could see what was happening. But I was changing and growing. But I believe God just like snatched me and took me out of there and, put me in this time, which it was so amazing to me because my whole thought process like shifted, and it shifted because I couldn't be productive. And he like completely stopped me dead in my tracks. Similar to all the people that were suffering with COVID that were sick and they couldn't be productive, Paul, and they were down and out and sick, right? Mm-hmm. So it was like a role reversal because even though I wasn't sick, like there I was, like in this crazy pandemic, taking care of all the people that were saying, I'm so sick, I can't do anything, right? And then there I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the same shoes in the sense that, I can't go to work, I can't do anything, right?
You're talking about the furlough time.
Yeah, the furlough, right. So
and
I had
for the first time, you had to take care of yourself, not somebody else. Therefore, the world doesn't need you. Maybe you need you.
Oh, yeah, that the Lord just stopped me, like I said, in my tracks. And so I realized the value of just like resting and preparing for the next stage. Like he gives you rest. My Bible study teacher said, you better watch out because if he gives you rest like that, it's because he's going to use you on the other end of the rest. Right.
You're resting for some reason here. Yeah,
oh, exactly. Yeah. It's like you're running a relay race or something and you're only resting briefly.
So how have you emerged? Have you come out of the cocoon? Have we is this a new butterfly emerging from us, a new species?
Or maybe she's still self-digesting herself.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
Like a zombie.
My friend knows me, not like a zombie, but no, my friend knows me. He knows I think about these things, but there's a part of me on the inside that is still totally digesting. So I just started, I started kind of, how do I say this? Yeah, I mean, I took good care of me and built things up and had some time just for.
So did you learn a new language? Did you start painting? Did you read something you wouldn't have read before? Did you go? This couple I was talking about this morning, they decided in the middle of COVID, that was their action call. It's now or never. We're stuck at home anyway. Why not be at home in a beautiful place? Why not be at home in the world? Why do we have to just be isolated here?
And sometimes it doesn't have to be that drastic, No. It doesn't have to be. It's just that sometimes you just need the rest, right? Well, you get out of yourself, right? But we don't all, that all caterpillars that cocoon, some turn into butterflies and some turn into moths, Right. We have a need for all creatures, right? They're not all beautiful butterflies, right? So we have to just go through our process, and you can't rush the rest time.
So
we always want to rush the rest time.
So this is a process. We've got to enjoy the ride and see what comes out on the other end, because maybe there's a greater purpose. Is that the trust factor in this relationship with God? When you write these angry letters, are we just looking at it in human time, short time, immediate time? Why is this happening? I need this now. I want this now. Give this to me tomorrow. Give me that back. It's like children, the children, you take away a toy and they immediately cry. They don't see any benefit to taking away that candy, that piece of toy there. But you're trying to, there's a bigger picture. You're going to get sick if you keep eating that candy. I'm taking care of you. Trust me. Listen to me. Is that part of our problem in letters to God? We're always trying to get an immediate answer to a long-term metamorphosis. What do you think?
I wasn't writing angry letters. I was just writing question letters. Like one time, I journal. And one time, let me tell you, this is right when I was first on furlough, I took the page in my book and it was full of question marks. I filled all the lines of a page with one question mark after another. One after another, because I had nothing to say, and I was like a child with a crayon. And that's literally like I just took my little journal and just went question mark, like the whole page.
Really?
Right. And then I felt so much better at the end because that's what I did. That's just, was just me.
What do we do with these letters to God? We tend to think of them as journals. We have to give them another name, a logical name. It's a journal. Journaling is an established thing. Put down your thoughts, express your feelings, put them on paper. You'll feel better, or it'll clarify things. Or if nothing else, it lets go of this question for the day. There, I put it on the journal. Whatever we call this, what do we do with these letters to God? Do we physically mail them? Do we just file them away? What do we do with these letters? These questions?
I just have a single question.
Yeah.
Is Paul a butterfly or a moth?
Depends on, I don't know. As I get older, I look more moth-like than butterfly-like. That's for sure. I look more fuzzy. I don't know. But I'm serious. What do we do with these? This whole show's about letters to God, which is somehow putting it out, a message, having a relationship. And if we can't talk to you directly, if I can't call God up, get God on the phone. Wait a minute. I want to talk to the man right now here. I want to get the manager on the phone here. I want the manager to come out right now here. If we can't do that, if it's more roundabout, I got to pray, I got to think, I got to dwell, I got to try and relax and see the sense of this. Whatever this letter is, this communication that we do, what do we do with these communications? Do we just file them away? Is it just an immediate way to get our feelings out? I want somebody to know how mad I am, how uncertain. Question. Or do the letters get, what do we do with the letters? Do we send them or just file them?
I think you read them back like weeks and months and years later and say, hey, God answered that question.
So I'm getting it.
Or that prayer was answered, or that's still pending, or that was a no. And then you see how God kind of shaped your life.
That's what I'm getting at. That's the perfect answer. That's what I was looking for. In other words, is it just an immediate thing to make you feel better, to get it out of your system? Or is there really a response requested? And if so, like when I send a letter to, I bought something from Amazon. Amazon might also be God. They have a godlike quality here. That's some mysterious entity that I just send requests and things arrive. I ask and then I receive, and sometimes it doesn't come the way it's supposed to and it's broken, and then I have to send it back. And I track that. Here's my 4 correspondence with Amazon. You still haven't refunded me for my money here. I still haven't gotten what I'm looking for. Or I review it. Yes, it was not, it was a good product, but it didn't really do what it's supposed to do. There's a communication even with this entity, this faceless entity called Amazon. Do we have a similar continuing dialogue with God, or is this just once, question, put that aside, I feel better now, I'll just trust something happens? Or like Dr. Trin says, do we track that correspondence? Do we write a second letter? In reply to my first question, I still have question, God. Still haven't gotten a reply, still waiting for an answer on that one. Is it an ongoing discussion, or is it just I ask and then I just trust?
Ooh.
It's both, Paul. The scriptures say, ask and you will receive, knock and the door will be opened, seek and you will find. So it's both. And for me, it's both, right? But, once I heard a preacher give this example, and he said, when you go into a really nice restaurant and you look at the menu and you put your order in,
right.
After you put your order in, you sit there and enjoy the conversation of the person that you're with, and you just sit there and enjoy your time. You don't ruminate the whole time and think, did they put the chicken on the stove? Is the chicken still cooking? What stage is it in? Is it still pink? Is my pasta cooked? I wonder if my broccoli's cooked. Like, you don't think about all the details of the recipe. Like, you just put your order in and trust that it's just going to come to you and be served like the way that, you requested it. Yeah, but in prayers, like in my prayers, I don't think about all the little different details all the time of what God is doing. Like I said, he just sometimes shows you the eyes. He just shows you like on a need to know basis, right? And sometimes I don't understand the path, but I trust him, right? I trust him. You mentioned, like these kinds of questions that you have, the scriptures say that he calls you by name. And those who have ears ought to hear. So he calls me by name, and I hear his voice in so many different ways, right? Most of the time when I hear his voice is in, community, when I'm in my different prayer groups and we're talking to each other and I hear his wisdom or I hear his love or I hear his encouragement, right? The discouragement
so you've
comes
answered
from
one of the
else.
key questions. How do I hear back?
You have to be silent.
That's hard.
That's hard. Yeah. That's hard for me. And it is hard. I got to be honest. It's hard to trust and let go and let God, that famous line, let go, let God. I'm a male. I was raised in Western society. Take charge, take control of your life, take action, take steps to make yourself better, take courses, go to college, work hard to better yourself. All of those things are about me being in control of the process. And then Elizabeth walks in and says, just put your order in and wait.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's hard. I think the hard part for many of us is being patient and being willing to just be silent.
Mm-hmm. Be still and know that I am God. That's another scripture, right?
Not on radio. You never awkward silence. You got to keep talking. When the record didn't play, you had to start talking. Those awkward silences.
Right.
Like now, we don't say anything for 10 seconds. I'll count. Here, we'll count to 10.
Did you notice the chronology of that verse? And it starts with be still, and then part 2 is know that I'm God. But look at the order of that. To really know God, you have to do part 1, which is be still.
Yeah.
Many of us never make it past part 1.
I think the restaurant analogy is a good one. Place your order and then wait. Just sit back and enjoy
just be
the time.
still. But right, and you need to enjoy that, the person, right? Like the guy at the restaurant. You got to enjoy that conversation. Like you got to enjoy the time with your wife, Paul.
But Elizabeth,
right?
Come on. We know that when the drink order doesn't come out, when the food doesn't arrive within the set amount of time, we get antsy. We call over the waiter. Hey, where's our food? Where's the drink? What's going on? Be patient.
Right.
We're a little backed up.
Right.
And then you sit there for a moment. And pretty soon you're ready to get up and walk out. Hey, I gave you 10 minutes.
And what about when the order comes different than how you requested it? Oh, that'll kill
Send
you,
it
right?
back.
What? I didn't order it.
It's called Yelp review, guys.
Yes.
It's called Yelp review. Oh, yeah.
I send an angry letter to God, right? You son of a gun, what did you do here?
A Yelp review.
So you have to turn the angry letters into thank you, because so many times, right, it's for your own good, right?
But how do we be still? I mean, is that being still part of the cocooning? Is that when you're still? Because it's not when you're consuming.
No.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's both. It's both. But you have to carve out time. You really do. You have to carve out time to be still. And I think that's one of the reasons God did that to me too. I believe that it was a gift. So when you talk about letters, my letter back was thank you. Just thank you for giving me that time to just be still. When
my daughter was young, like 10, 11, 12 or whatever, that early teenage, coming on teenage years, antsy. I'll say this is the ADD generation. They all have attention deficit disorder. My daughter the TV would be on, the music would be playing, and she'd be on her iPhone. All 3 things. And I'd say, pick one. You can't do 3 things simultaneously. I need this overstimulation, noise, visual, sound, somebody's calling her on the phone. It's flooded with stimulation. And sometimes I'd say, put it all down. Let's go in the backyard. She'd say, Dad. And I'd say, come on. And we'd go and she'd say, what? I'd say, close your eyes. And she'd say, okay, they're closed. What? I said, what do you hear? And she'd say, nothing. I say, you didn't hear the bird? Well, okay, I guess I can hear the bird. You don't hear the plane overhead? Well, yeah, I guess I can hear the plane. You don't hear the wind and the leaf? You're missing all these other cues because they're drowned out by the noise. Are we drowned out by the noise?
Yes.
A lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Ooh, that's deep. You're getting deep. Now that you're getting deep, we got like 3 minutes left.
Exactly.
But hey, so how do you actually be still? So what is it? Have you emerged yet as a butterfly, Liz? Or are you still cocooning? And if you have emerged as a butterfly, what is it like? Are you different?
Are you flying?
Or are you...
Or still crawling?
Or are you a moth? No, you don't like a moth. You're like a butterfly.
Whatever it is, are you doing something different than you? We used to crawl and consume at a frantic pace. Mm-hmm. I think that's the state most of us are in. We're crawling and consuming everything we can, every bit of information, every bit of opportunity, every bit of stimulation, radio, TV, internet. We're just consume. We're a consumer-driven society here. We consume and then we move on to something quickly. We rarely wait to see what happens with all that consumption. And in fact, we overconsume. Mm-hmm. We get burned out. Mm-hmm. We get stressed out. We get fat. We get drunk. We get whatever it is. We overconsume everything. He's stimulating himself right now as we talk here. He's stimulating his nasal passages, right? So if we're all larvae, caterpillars, frantically consuming, crawling around, you're saying once in a while God takes you out of this and says, "Time to I'm going to lay you up for a while. It's an accident. I'm going to put you in a home. It's called a furlough." And I'm going to allow you to cocoon and to slow down and to be silent and to turn into something else. What do you think you're turning into? Can you see any of it yet? Have you emerged, or is this still to be determined?
Oh, that's a really good question. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of change on the interior, but I'm not ready to fly 100% yet. Right. A butterfly takes time too. Nobody wants to see themselves like a creepy, crawly, caterpillar, literally down here in the weeds, right? We always say that in business meetings. Don't get out of the weeds down here and get in the trees, right? And so, like with the butterfly, I mean, butterflies fly around majestic with their beautiful, they're not all monarch butterflies, but with their beautiful colored wings and drink the nectar of flowers. So who wants to be a creepy, crawly, caterpillar eating leaves, right? Living down here. I want to be up here. Mm-hmm. And so some parts of me have changed. Some parts of me are still, right? Some parts of me are still being digested. And a butterfly takes time too. When it comes out, I don't know if you know this, Paul, but when it comes out of that chrysalis too, it takes time for the wings have to dry, and also they have to get circulation going in them. So although the blood has to rush into the little veins, so the butterfly has to kind of pump up his wings and dry before it can fly, and that takes time. But you can't force the flight too soon because the butterfly will die. And it's also in a very vulnerable state before it takes flight because it can't protect himself from prey.
No, yeah, right. So it's very, for a brief moment there, right? It's in that. There's a fancy word. Go look this up. Liminal.
Yeah,
state. My favorite word is liminal.
Half an hour. Yeah. So I feel like I did most of my digesting when I had my furlough time. It's just an interior kind of we call it at church. We call it examination of conscience and different things like that. Conscience. You
always have to give it a term. Whatever it is, it's a change. But we always want to make sense of these changes. We always want to give it a term. And Dr. Trin's looking for 5 steps to change and 4 ways to do. He's a scientist. He wants to break it down into a methodology that we can mimic. Science means I can replicate it over and over and over again. I don't know that the change of becoming from a caterpillar to a creature that flies is always as perfectly predictable as we want it to be. I don't know. Do they all take exactly 27 and a half days, or some take longer?
It varies. Like we all vary, right? So it's still a process. I'm not finished. I'm not complete.
Well, I hope you come
And I
back
don't
and
wanna
tell
rush
us
it.
when you come back and have big wings on the back of your behind your shoulders here. We want to see that growth. We want to see that flight, and we want to follow along because we all want to believe. I want to
She's
believe
got
there's
wings
something.
already. She's an angel.
I think so. I think
Thank you.
so.
Mhm.
So come
Wow.
back and show us your wings, and come back and share the journey of going from the creepy crawler to the evolution
The
of something
creepy crawler.
to something
We're
bigger
all
and better.
creepy crawlers at times.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right?
We're
We
still
all are.
cocooning now.
Yeah, we all go through different stages. It's normal. It's human.
I'll tell you what
Yes.
I'm hearing out of this, because I'm definitely into hearing. That's how I take in information, not just reading it, not just experience it. I'm an auditory learner. What I'm hearing is there is a book or a seminar in this. There is a way to journal this journey and share it with others rather than just experiencing it alone. I think there
Wow.
is something here that could
Wow.
be the new thing for you, a new chapter, a new journey, a new flight. That because you've probably never written a book, you probably don't teach seminars, you probably don't do trainings.
This
That's
is a
not you.
seminar.
This is
This
something.
is
Yeah.
the cocooning seminar. And don't worry, when the seminar occurs, we're going to have Paul come by and video the whole thing for OC Talk Radio
There you go.
Live.
Yeah, sure. We'll capture this because I think this is a beautiful analogy, and it makes sense of the sudden cocooning that we have all been forced to do because of COVID.
Right.
And perhaps it gives us some hope that there is something going on that we can't see. I doubt the caterpillar sees what's happening until all of a sudden it emerges and goes, wow, where did these come from? I didn't know I could fly. Never occurred to me I could fly. To whatever extent it's aware of itself, it doesn't look around and say, oh, I see what's happening. Oh, I see. This is a good thing. I'm going to wrap myself real tightly and eat myself and evolve into something and alone and emerge. I think this is a story to be told to others as you chronicle this journey, like in your journals. Don't just keep these letters to God private. Turn them into a book, a seminar, a webinar, a video. We want to see this process and understand it because it not only makes sense of what we're going through, it gives us hope for tomorrow. And that's the hope of this show, to give everybody some hope.
Wow, that
Thank you.
all came out of Paul's mouth, who is
Wow. Paul is the encourager, isn't he?
I'm the one that came it all back. It's all trying to make it come back and make sense here. That's
Paul's like Thomas the Doubter, and now encouraging Dr. Faith Elizabeth here to do a seminar about
exactly
her cocooning to butterfly story and how we can all kind of learn from this.
I've always felt I'm Thomas the Doubter. Show me the wounds, and then I'll believe it. And then how embarrassed Thomas was at the end. Oh, my God, and my Lord, or whatever he says, and falls down at that moment and says, oh, my God. And he says, yeah. And he says, you believe because you saw. Happy are those who did not see, who still believe. I haven't seen the change. I haven't seen any wings grow. I just see myself wrapped in a cocoon, and it doesn't feel good. And I don't like it. I want to get out and start consuming. That's all I know how to do. And you're giving us hope that there's another stage that we're going to emerge out of here.
Yeah.
I want to see it. I want to put my finger in it.
I need to give Paul like one of those Catholic names where it sounds really good, like Brother Paul of the Holy Cross, right? Sister Elizabeth of
Brother Paul of the cocoon, of the happy
Sister
cocoon.
Elizabeth of the angelic
Of the tent.
Of the tent, of the
Of
way.
of the holy tent.
We're
Sister
all.
Elizabeth of the holy tent.
I'm
Brother
always.
Paul of the Holy Cross. And Brother Dung of the Holy Cow.
On that term, we're going to, as we think of giving ourselves new names for this new stage in our life here, I hope you'll come back and share the journey with us because you're on something.
You're on something.
You're seeing something that we haven't seen before. Maybe there's a purpose to the cocoon. Maybe they're going to emerge with new talents, new skills, and the ability to fly. That's an amazing tale. Thanks
All right,
for coming
Liz,
on.
you gotta
Thank
come
you.
back and finish up this story now.
Yeah.
We made some progress in the story.
Made some progress with Paul. I heard positivity out of his
A
mouth.
little bit there for a
Wow.
moment. I got to. That'll go away quickly here. All right. Thanks for joining us. Take us out, Dr. Trin.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Great story, Liz, on your cocooning experience, your experience with under the tent, the COVID tent. And we're waiting to hear the rest of the story when we come on.
As
with
you
you next.
emerge from the tent.
When
from the cocoon.
the emerging, right? A beautiful butterfly, or is it a moth? Or wow, it's a bat. Or maybe not a bat, but emerging.
Hopefully it's
is
not a
something-
bug that goes back to eating again. Hopefully it's not just a creepy
Yeah, no,
bug.
it's not. It's going to be something beautiful, I'm sure.
Right.
We'll do this again soon. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. The power of stories. The power of writing a letter to God. And then waiting for an answer. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, where you never have to wait long. There's always another show coming your way. As we stream live from the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.